Good morning, America. How are you? Don't you know I've loved you all my life? Hi, everybody. This is Robert of Prague, recording on the west side of the Rockies. I want to wish United States of America, my new home, the happiest of birthdays, 250. I am an ancient ski bum, so end of April I celebrated a birthday, a little bit less than third of United States age. And I come from a severely and brutally persecuted anti-communist and pro-American family. I was beaten in the 1950s in grade school. The Stalinist principle encouraged the commie boys, always 5-1, 10-1, never 1-on-1, to beat the crap out of me. And so I was black and blue, covered with blood. My parents couldn't do anything. They were livid. And especially looking back, my late dad, who was a top-notch R&D chemist back then, he was a vice president of a huge chemical plant on the east side of Prague. The entire neighborhood was 99% Stalinist commies. They hated us with a vengeance. And my dad drove the Reds nuts with his 750 knucklehead Harley Davidson. He was probably the only one in Prague back then. And my parents listened to American big bands in the late 50s to Elvis, drove the commies absolutely nuts because back then everything American was forbidden, including jeans and Mickey Mouse. I kid you not. It was quite intense. And then jumping forward, 1968 in August, Brezhnev, the little Stalin, sent to Czechoslovakia about 500,000 troops and 7,000 tanks to squash the so-called Prague Spring. The communist government, they wanted a little bit more freedom. What actually Gorbachev did 20 years later, they squashed it. And they killed, I was in college back then, they killed 5 of my college buddies, age 17 through 19, for pranks, right? Nothing criminal or violent. We weren't armed. For example, waving the Czech flag in front of the tanks, they were run over or shot at close range with the M50 on top of the tank, right, on the turret. So believe me when I tell you that the United States is the best country on this planet ever. Why I say it? Because I have the perspective. I've lived under communism, fought against it, and escaped from it on June 19, 1970, 5 days after my graduation from geology. So I have the perspective, right? I have lived 21 years under communism, then 12 years in Switzerland, my dad and I escaped to. And then I've been and then I lived in several countries in Western Europe and traveled extensively over Western Europe. And I speak 5 languages, so I know how the European people think. And I was really, excuse my French, I was pissed off when I found out in the 70s on my travels that most Europeans hate this country, despite America saving Europe twice, World War I, World War II. And to remind you, right, young Americans, Hitler and Nazis weren't right-wing. That's a lie from the radical leftist woke professors in high school and our colleges. Nazi means National Socialist, okay? A National Socialist Workers' Party. So they were extreme left, but they hated the communists. No doubt about that. So remember that Nazis, fascists, Bolsheviks, communists, Maoists, that's all different part of the infernal permutations of socialism. It is pure evil. As I mentioned, they murdered the Soviets in 1965 of my friends, teenagers. And then in 1962, during the Bay of Pigs disaster of JFK, the Cuban crisis, the Czech KGB, right, the secret police, executed 4 of my friends, 14-year-old boys. And how I know? Because, right, it happened in secret. Then 2 days after they disappeared, the Czech KGB picked me up in school and interrogated me for hours, yelled at me. I was scared to death, but they couldn't break me and make me a snitch on my family and friends. Our family, we are defiant. We don't cooperate with this type of government or companies. We take the punishment, and we have. So we've been doing it since World War I. So we take the punishment, and we have the graves and the scars. I loved this country when I was in grade school. Then when I looked at the pictures of the American smiling hunks and the beautiful ladies, right, in the Harley magazine, The Enthusiast, right, it was black and white pictures, but on that nice, chalky, shiny paper, I thought United States was on a different planet, right, the beautiful pin-up American women, right, of course, no tats, no nose rings back then, right, And my dad was actually quite a handsome guy, deep blue eyes, black wavy hair. He was 6'2", I'm 6'4". So that was absolutely incredible. I'm not kidding you. I thought that United States is on a different planet. I really know for a fact we Americans are not better than the rest of the world. But thanks to the inspired and incredible founding fathers, especially George Washington, incorruptible man, not perfect. Nobody on this planet is perfect. We puny humans are mortals, and that's how God set it up. So they created a system that still doesn't exist anywhere on this planet. Right? The Declaration of Independence and our Constitution and the Bill of Rights have no equal. Many countries then later, especially after World War II, copied our Constitution, but nothing comes close to the original founding documents. My dad fell in love with this country at age 10 in 4th grade. The American history were mandatory in Czech schools in the 1930s. Between the wars, Czechoslovakia was a very wealthy capitalist country. The wife of the first president, Thomas Masaryk, she was an American from New York. So we have that unique connection, right? Even before that, after Civil War in the 1870s, 80s, and 90s, millions of Bohemians, the Czechs, immigrated from the Hungarian, Austrian, Habsburg Empire to the United States. Just to give you a little bit of Americana, Southern Texas, between 1870 and World War I, so 1914, had more Czechs and Moravians than Anglos and Germans, about 1.5 million. Czechs were in southern Texas, around actually south of San Antonio. So that was absolutely incredible. But back to the situation today. So I just want to everybody know that I love this country to pieces. I am a grateful, proud, and unhyphenated American citizen, U.S. citizen. I had to give up 1992 in July my Czech citizenship, which I gladly did. So I am American only with Bohemian or Czech roots, especially living in the Wild West, right, on the west side of the Rockies. I dreamt about it as a boy, reading all the real and fake adventure books about the Indians and trappers and cowboys and gunslingers. I always wanted to live here. And by the grace of God, I do. I've been here 36 years. We moved from San Diego in 1990 because I went to ski all season. Plus, I knew back then in the late 1980s that California is going to go down to the sewers because of the socialist policies of the governors, especially the current one. He turns my stomach. I am also very upset what's going on in the elections this year. So please, you decent, normal Americans, whether Republicans or Democrats, I don't care. Those of you who don't fall for the woke marxoid chimeras or the notions that men can get pregnant and people can change their sex. I mean, that is nuts. Right? It cannot be. Our DNA and chromosomes don't allow for that. I am a lowly retired geologist and a songwriter and a former professional musician, but I know that that's the way it is. Sex is binary. But anyway, back to the elections. So I lived in New York in the early 80s, right on the Upper West Side. So I couldn't believe that communist and Islamist Mamdani won as a mayor in New York. Are you kidding me, people? And then, now in Denver, that militant radical wing who is pro-Hamas, which is a terrorist organization, and then also more radical socialists and communists won elections in New York. I mean, what's going on in the United States? This is really insane. So let me tell you, fellow Americans, communism, socialism, fascism, Nazism, Bolshevism, they are the different parts, as I mentioned, of the infernal permutations of socialism. Right? It is pure evil. Socialists and communists, including certain Adolf, they murdered about 200 million people in the last 100 years. Nothing comes close. Right? Not even Genghis Khan and everybody else, right? The ancient empires, Romans, you name it. So please, in November, you don't vote the radical socialists and communists in power, because they will destroy this incredible country, the most free and prosperous country in the world, because of the system the founding fathers set up. Right? As I mentioned, nothing comes close. We are not perfect, nobody is, but our system of government is the best. Take my word for it. As I've said, I know the difference between communism, Western Europe, and the United States. And look it up, especially you young ones, millennials, Gen X, Gen Z. Don't believe the politicians and the corrupt, woke mainstream media. Read and watch so-called alt media. They don't lie. Mainstream media, they do. I found out in 1982, in September, when I came from Zurich, Switzerland, that New York Times is totally corrupt. The writers are very, very good. They are educated, smooth. And even back then, they were woke, right? Marxoid. Right? It was very subtle, the agitprop and the manipulation, but I could tell, coming from communism, I could tell. I read between the lines and I connect the dots. So I dumped New York Times in 2 weeks, 1982, and subscribed to National Review of Buckley. Back then, I was fluent in English when I came to this country, but I had to read him with a dictionary. Erudite man, big words. So that was funny, but unfortunately, National Review became Vogue too. I remember all of them vilified Trump in 2016. And anyway, so I rely on my common sense, which in Czech we call it the peasant healthy reasoning. And that's the way it is. It is very hard to fool people like me. We see right through it. Even my dad, who was an atheist, I am a very conservative Christian. since 1980. I'm celebrating my 44th year in the United States of September this year. So anyway, so even my dad, who was a very conservative atheist, we have a very discerning mind. We don't fall for this woke marxoid chimeras and propaganda. Please, America. So I never played soccer. I don't follow it, but I'm excited about the Europeans, how they rave about this country, because the European media is lying, like our American media, that America is racist and evil and all this crap. Just, it turns my stomach, right? Because it's not true. And I can tell you, from fall 1982 till spring 1983, I backpacked 6 months across this country with my guitar. My dad almost killed me. He was a vice president of R&D of an American-Swiss company in Switzerland back then, and he told me, "Are you nuts? In mid-career, you just quit your job and you will backpack?" And I told him, thanks to you and the family, I love this. I love United States. I have to find out what America is all about. And trust me, I'm not a bum. I don't do drugs. I don't drink anymore. And I don't even smoke. So I just want to explore United States because it is a huge country. And take my word for it, every state is different. Kentucky is different than Tennessee, right? Our neighbors, but completely different. And so is Colorado is different than Utah or Wyoming or Idaho. It is absolutely incredible. And nobody ever asked me, traveling right for 6 months, nobody asked me, like back then in Europe, papers, please. And Europe is now so-called European Union, but it's socialism. They are practicing socialism mixed with fascism. The bureaucrats are unbelievably nasty. So I'm so grateful again to God that I could foresee it. And I left Europe in 1982, never looked back. So I'm already at the threshold of the so-called eternal hunting grounds. I just want to know my fellow Americans, as I said, the normal crowd. I detest the woke people, but the politicians, media, ICE protesters. You people are nuts. You are clowns. I gladly let God sort it out. I don't want to kill you like you want to kill me. I'm not that kind of man. I'm civilized, educated. I speak 5 languages for all of you who call us deplorables, bitterklingers, deniers. Of course, as a geologist, I've been laughing with my dad back then in the early 70s, the global cooling. Climate change has been happening for millions of years. So also this hysteria that we're gonna die if we don't quit driving cars and industry and all that stuff. I mean, it's complete nonsense. And what is behind it, again, is socialism and communism and big government. All what is it about is wealth redistribution and total control, global control. Trump is correct that he exited from the crazy Paris Accord, or then even back to Kyoto. It's complete nonsense, and it would fleece us, Americans, the middle class. And UN is completely corrupt, always has been, right? During the Cold War, it was controlled by the KGB, the Soviet brutal secret police that killed millions of innocent men, women, and children. I ain't rich or famous, but take my word for it. I really know what I'm talking about. So again, all the best to normal American citizens of every shape and political persuasion. And happy birthday, United States of America, 250th. And I cannot stress enough how grateful I am to God that it seems that I'll be alive on Saturday, right? It's Thursday, late afternoon. I'm looking at my beloved Rockies from my bedroom. And why I say it, because the brain surgeons and the neurologists at the U of U here, they told me 10 years ago that I should be dead because they did MRI of my brain. I survived a near fatal accident, 1970, as a young geologist in Switzerland. So I'm very grateful for Lord's grace. And every morning when I wake up, I thank Him for my freedom. And then I woke up. And I'm not kidding. Okay? So that's all. Bye-bye now.